Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through training camp. Day 10, it's in the books. 49ers open practices are officially closed as the San Francisco 49ers prepare and get ready for joint practices with the Las Vegas Raiders. But before we get into any of that, we're going to talk about who won the quarterback competition and, of course, every other standout from training camp from today's day 10 practice right after this. You already know what to do. Drop a SDS in the chat. Smash the like button. Let's get into it. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is good, everybody? Boy, I remember not too long ago we were talking about, man, when is training camp going to be here? When is training camp going to be here? And it has come and gone. And today we had our last practice of the summer before the San Francisco 49ers get ready to head to Las Vegas and prepare to face off against the Raiders. Obviously, we now have the full picture of what the 49ers quarterback position looks like. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to start off with some other positions today, some other guys that balled out. I would say my favorite 1v1 matchup of all of training camp, Talanoa Hufanga versus George Kittle. You talk about battling. You talk about just two all pros going at it with just the highest level of competition on a football field. Talanoa Hufanga versus George Kittle, all for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, has been, worth the price of admission. The ability to be able to watch these two 49ers legends go at it. Talanoa Hufanga arguably looks like one of the best 49ers on the field right now. Heading into year 3, Talanoa Hufanga looks stronger. He looks faster. He looks more instinctual than ever. Talanoa Hufanga, man. We know he had a great season last year, but I think he's going to have a better season this year. And, George Kittle, he came down on the wrong side of things going up against Talanoa Hufanga in 1v1s. But like I said, it was still just phenomenal battles. Again, one of the biggest surprises of training camp, Javon Kinlaw. He looks like a different person. The speed in which Javon Kinlaw is moving looks like he's twice as fast as he was last year, because I was trying to quantify how fast Javon Kinlaw is moving. He had one particular rep where he cut across the offensive lineman's face in 1v1 drill. I think it was Brendel. And the speed in which he went from point A to point B, this is a guy that I've watched through 2 training camps already, and I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. Javon Kinlaw looks like a completely different player. Again, we know it's always quantified with him with health, but he's done everything right. He looks like a completely different person out on the field. He looks like he's absolutely going to contribute to this 49ers defense. It's Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead with the first team. It's Kevin Givens and Javon Kinlaw with the second team. A bit of a surprise player to show up in the first string defensive line today during defensive install was Alex Barrett. Alex Barrett has quietly had a really good camp. He is a tweener, basically IDL, so interior defensive lineman. He's really small by interior defensive lineman standards, but he's fast, he's quick, and he's strong. And he's had, like I said, quietly a really good camp. and to the point where I saw him creep up with the ones today. So it was Drake Jackson, who's been running with the ones, Barrett, Hargrave, and Cleveland Farrell. So Barrett might be a sneaky candidate to make this roster. He's been on the 49ers practice squad since 2020. He's been cut by the 49ers probably 6 or 7 times over his time with this team. And if Alex Barrett makes this roster, it is going to be one of the better stories of anyone on this team. I haven't talked a lot about Barrett. I've been tracking Barrett for a long time. If you go back to 2020, that fun COVID year, and you remember that game towards the end of the year against the Cardinals, he had the game-winning pressure on Kyler Murray back in 2020 as an elevated practice squad player. And if he can make the roster in 2023, that is a phenomenal story. So he's a guy that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on that could make this roster. So that's going to be really interesting. I saw Jonathan Feliciano. Feliciano has been getting reps at starting left guard. He had a win versus Javon Hargrave in 1v1s. And he's been stepping in for Aaron Banks while Aaron Banks is dealing with the concussion. We had really good 1v1 rep by Cameron Latu. So we had rookie versus rookie, Latu versus Jair Brown. Cameron Latu, I think, does a pretty solid job at running his routes. Like, basically setting up his moves and being able to create separation. And he was able to do that with Jair Brown. He's done it a couple times throughout camp. The previous times he's dropped it, but this time he came down with a really nice snag, beat Jair Brown again, kind of stemmed him inside, double move, broke out, created separation, brought the ball in. Really good rep by Cameron Latu. Latu and Brown have been going at it all training camp in 1v1s. And again, Latu has been dealing with drops, but he's been closing the gap on that as well. But the other rookie tight end, Braden Willis, continues to look good. He seems like a guy that's going to be able to make this roster. Charlie Warner had a nice rep. He had a nice win today. Let's see. Quantrez Knight had a really nice rep on Deebo Samuel, where Deebo Samuel was trying. Quantrez Knight basically ran the route for Deebo Samuel, broke up the pass, and all that type of stuff. But today, one-on-ones were pretty solid. Chris Conley won versus Ambry. CMC continues to be unguardable. Probably the number one, the best rep today of 1v1s was Christian McCaffrey, one-handed in the back of the end zone. Somehow got his hand on it, brought it in. The whole crowd went crazy. Fred Warner cannot guard CMC. We know what CMC is. CMC is a beast, and so is Fred Warner. Fred Warner is probably the best cover linebacker in the NFL. Fred Warner cannot cover Christian McCaffrey in one-on-one. These guys went up at least once every practice in 1v1. CMC got him every time. CMC got him every time. But again, I don't fault Fred because CMC is a cheat code. So absolutely crazy. I will say, though, as we start to transition towards kind of team drills and the breakdown of team period today, defensive line was balling out. Cleveland Farrell, multiple sacks, multiple pressures, tackle for loss. One of his best reps was a rep where he beat Trent Williams. It was a run blocking play. CMC running right off Trent Williams' hip, but Trent couldn't move Farrell, and so CMC got kind of stuck, and Farrell was just, in his run fit, eyes in the backfield, just watching, got rid of Trent, tackle for loss. And I was like, oh, Cleveland, welcome. Cleveland had a really nice day today. So Cleveland Farrell, the guy who's been playing opposite of Drake Jackson, had a quality day, probably one of the better days out of anyone on the field for the San Francisco 49ers, which bodes well for this defensive line depth. We've been wanting to know who are the defensive ends that are stepping up outside of Bosa. Cleveland Farrell is one of those guys. I had Cleveland as a dark horse candidate. Dark horse. When I went on Bleacher Report and did that stream, I had Cleveland as one of my 4 underrated players to keep an eye out for. And Cleveland Farrell today absolutely met the bill. He looked really nice today. Not another guy that popped today, Austin Bryant. Austin Bryant's been hurt for the last couple practices. He returns. Austin Bryant would have had a handful of sacks. One sack, he literally just couldn't stop his momentum and ran into Trey's back. So he would have sacked Trey. It wasn't like an egregious hit or anything like that, but he got the edge so quickly that he just accidentally ran into the back of Trey. So Austin Bryant has been someone to, I think, keep your eye on. Drake Jackson has had a pretty solid camp as well. So the defensive line, man, the very first play of team drills was a sack. The entire pocket just collapsed around Brock Purdy. It was a sack. Brock just threw it away. It was a play where the pocket collapsed so fast that he couldn't even sidestep the sack, and which is what they do. That's why when you hear these training camp stats, they're meaningless, because when you get a sack, they keep the play going. And sometimes a sack is so detrimental to the play that it disrupts everything, and the guy just throws the football. And that was that play. The sack just ruined everything, ruined the timing, ruined the pocket, ruined the timing of the play, and Brock just threw it in the ground. So he really didn't spend a whole lot of time dealing with that. But we had nothing from Brock to start. Darnold was second up. So as we know, the 49ers have been rotating at quarterback 2 between Trey and between Darnold. Today, it was Darnold's day to run with the 2s. It kind of feels like I see. I don't chart this stuff as closely. I know someone like Rohan would probably know this. Rohan, if you haven't followed Rohan's coverage, he's done a phenomenal job all of training camp. He writes for WebZone, super meticulous with his coverage. He does a great job, but that's why I think he would know something like this. The way the splits have set up all throughout training camp from a feel perspective, because I'm going off vibes right now from what I've watched and what I've seen. It feels like Darnold has started to get more opportunities with the 2s first. So I don't know if that's an indication of how the 49ers feel, because at the end of practice, Trey gets a quality amount of reps with the 2s as well. So I don't know if the first person out has an indication on how the 49ers feel about that particular kind of competition that's happening. But Darnold did hit Deebo Samuel on a deep crosser. Womack was in tight coverage. And you have to give credit to Deebo Samuel for the catch because Womack was right there. Shout out to Darnold. Darnold put it right on Deebo. Deebo went up for a very difficult catch, and Womack was all over Deebo Samuel. I think Womack has had a pretty solid camp. I'm pretty excited about Samuel Womack and what he can be in the future, because he's a cornerback that can play inside and outside. So he is definitely a guy that has been very much intriguing. So that's a guy that has been fun to watch. Let's see, as we continue through the first initial team period, and I'm going to get to The real fun period of today where the fireworks started to go off was, the red zone move the ball period, or was it move the ball? Might have just been the first initial red zone period, but we had a lot of fun in that period, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But Purdy hit a really nice pass to Ray McLeod over the middle. It's about like a 35-yard gain. Felt like 35 air yards is about how the ball traveled, and just put it right on Ray. Again, quality coverage. Um, but Purdy looked really comfortable today. Every day that Purdy has come out there has been Purdy's best day. So he gets better every single time the 49ers go out and practice. So it's been a very intriguing and positive sign for Purdy as he continues to prepare for being the starting quarterback. Then we had Austin Bryant with a sack on Trey. I talked about that one already. Um, let's see. As we continued, Purdy had a really nice throw to Christian McCaffrey, and it could have been a touchdown. Oh, that came later. But anyways, Purdy had a really nice throw to CMC. I couldn't tell the route concept. I didn't see the play develop. I was watching Purdy in the pocket, and so I'm following the ball. And Purdy throws it to the front right corner pylon. CMC is one-on-one with Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. CMC elevates, has an opportunity to catch it, drops it. I call it a drop because I think I think Brock Purdy put the ball in perfect position. Well timed throw. I thought Purdy did a great job on the throw. That's one you'd like to have CMC come down with. Darnold had a near interception to Conley, or targeting Conley, I believe, and it was DFF on that particular play. Then a sack on Darnold. It was I called it a sack, but as I said, that's why these training camp stats always need to be taken with a grain of salt, is that it was a sack. And then Darnold kind of steps up into the pocket and he just floats this ball, and it just goes right to the back corner pylon, right in the bucket of McLeod. He catches it, touchdown, but it would have been a sack, a clear sack on the play. T.Y. McGill would have had a sack on Brandon Allen. Again, I was talking about it earlier. Defensive line went crazy. Defensive line balled out. So defense did a pretty good job, but like I say, they keep the play rolling. They don't kill the play when that happens. And then we really started to cook. So I think about right around this time, all four quarterbacks have been sacked. Brock has been sacked. Trey has been sacked. Darnold and Allen have been sacked. So again, emphasis, defensive line was cooking too. And they were doing a pretty good job putting a lot of pressure on this. Is the offensive line having problems? I would say a little bit. Again, for me to give you a true evaluation, it's again, offensive line is such an intricate process. And for me, like, you've heard me talk about offensive line directly after games. I always say I don't like to give you an opinion of an offensive line performance until I watch the tape, because I got to watch it 3, 4, 5 times to be able to really see how the play is set up. I need to watch all 5 guys. I need to see what the correlation is, because you have to understand offensive line is a team within the team. So you can get a pressure on the interior, but it could be a coverage bust, or it could be a straight beat by an individual player who's one on one. There's so many different ways things can break down. So it's hard for me to give a decisive evaluation on the 49ers offensive line. I've seen moments where they've been able to have quality pockets, and I've also seen moments where the pocket collapses on them. So I would say it wasn't the 49ers offensive line's best practice, but I will say that this defensive line, I also believe, is really good. So that will tend to happen, especially when you're rotating. The drop off between first string offensive line to second string offensive line is like jumping off a cliff. Woo! That's also another thing to like keep in mind. So when you're going from second string O line to first string, the disparities are so huge that you are going to see issues that come along with that as well. Um, but after that, this is where it got really, really fun. And Brock Purdy, hold on. that thing was waiting to come out. Woo! Woo! Boy. Excuse me. Oh, I needed to get that thing out. But this is where thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is where Brock Purdy really started to cook. Brock went This was a fun practice for me because any type of question, thought process that should Brock Purdy be in a competition? No. Brock Purdy went to work and he went for 3 consecutive touchdowns in a row. Brock Purdy hits Juwan Jennings for a touchdown in the red zone period as Jennings is running across the back of the end zone, kind of through the middle of the end zone towards the right sideline. Brock has this calmness to him that was on full display today, and we have more examples of how Brock was showing that off today. But I feel really confident with Brock Purdy as the 49ers starting quarterback moving forward. After he hits Juwan Jennings for a touchdown, very next rep is a touchdown to Tay Martin. This time, this was more of like a schemed open play. So he just had to identify the right read, the open man, and hit him in stride. And that's exactly what he did. So it was a quick little hitter, basically hit that plant foot. Tay Martin on an in-breaking route, just right to Tay Martin. Tay Martin catches it, touchdown. So we got 2 touchdowns back to back. Again, this is red zone period with Brock Purdy at starting quarterback. And then we go 3 touchdowns. And this one I liked because he had to be patient. It wasn't like the one with Tay Martin where the guy flashed open right away. He had to wait, and you could feel the pressure of the defensive ends starting to collapse on him. You could see him kind of like processing through the defense, trying to find the open guy. And I'm like, oh, like even me, my internal clock was like, oh, you got to get rid of it. You're going to get sacked. They're obviously not going to sack him. They're going to tag him off. But like it was like dangerously close to that happening. And I was like, oh. I was like, Brock, throw it. And he's kind of processing, then boom, sees it. Willie Snead bangs it on Willie Snead for a touchdown. And I'm like, all right, this guy's cooking right now. He's cooking. Again, dropped dropped potential touchdown earlier by Christian McCaffrey. And then he comes out, throws 3 touchdowns in a row. Really nice. Then Trey gets his opportunity. Trey threw a touchdown on a slant to Chris Conley. Pretty similar to the Tate Martin play, where again, kind of feels like they got schemed open. In breaking route, Trey put it on him, coming off the right side. So good throw, banged it on him. Trey Lance got a touchdown. And I thought this was pretty funny. Because I tweeted yesterday that the 49ers haven't had a designed quarterback run all of training camp for Trey Lance. And it got quite a bit of traction on Twitter, and a lot of people like talking about it. Guess what Kyle did? Kyle brought out a designed quarterback run with Trey Lance. And I'm just like, this low key feels like a troll. We know Kyle Shanahan, big fan of the channel, definitely stops in from time to time. But I thought it was funny. I was like, this feels like a troll. Like that I just tweeted out no designed runs for Trey Lance all of training camp, and then in team period we get a basically a quarterback draw up the middle with Trey Lance. He probably would have gotten stopped at the 1 yard line, 2 yard line. But I was like, I laughed. I was like, that's hilarious because I just tweeted about how they haven't done that. And sure enough, we get Trey Lance dropping back, puts his back foot in the ground, and he goes right up field for a designed quarterback draw. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny. So I talked about it already. We have 3 Brock Purdy touchdowns, 1 potential touchdown that was dropped by Christian McCaffrey, and then we get another drop. This time, Brock Purdy, I think, has Danny Gray on an outbreaking route towards the front left pylon, to try to give you a visual. So you have, I don't know where Danny Gray started. I just know where he finished. And I know Danny Gray was by the front corner left pylon, moving towards the left sideline. Brock finds him instantly, puts the ball on him instantly. Danny Gray dropped it. Danny Gray was visibly upset. I mean, you talking about jumping around, flailing his body, just visibly frustrated that he just dropped a touchdown. And I think this wide receiver race has kind of heated up a little bit. That I think I don't know. Is that going to be a detriment on Danny Gray because Conley's been playing well? Ronnie Bell has been playing well. Willie Snead has been playing really well. And Isaiah Winstead has even played well. So is that drop more important? I feel like now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I feel like if Danny Gray catches that, it's kind of the exclamation point on, okay, Danny Gray's had a really good camp, right? If he catches this touchdown, I feel like that would have been like, all right, he started a little slow, but for the most part, he's had a quality camp. He's done a really good job of catching the football, and he ends it with a touchdown. But he dropped it, and it was a pretty egregious drop at that. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out ultimately. But again, Kyle Shanahan is going to have some very difficult decisions when it comes to cut day. So I don't know. I feel like the margin of error might be a little bit thinner at that wide receiver spot, but we'll see. So recap again to just kind of quantify the type of practice that Brock Purdy had today. Again, he didn't practice the last practice, and it was just a down practice. There's no energy. There was no there was no intensity from the previous practice where Brock didn't play. Well, Brock comes back, all of a sudden the 49ers offense is moving and they're scoring touchdowns. And this time you now have Cleveland Farrell, who creates pressure off Brock's left. So going up against Trent Williams, he kind of gets around Trent, and Brock senses the pressure, and Brock dips. Brock just runs. He's gone. He felt the pressure coming from the left. I don't think it would have been a sack. And he just dipped out, goes to the right, kind of at first, like you see he has his eyes downfield, but then he just tucks the ball and he runs towards the corner right pylon. And I didn't have the best view of it, so I couldn't tell if he would have been tackled or whatever, but all I saw was the referee throw up his hands, touchdown. So, by all indications, Brock Purdy wouldn't have gotten sacked on that play. He bails out to his right and he rushes in for a touchdown. Brock Purdy could have potentially had 6 touchdowns today in one like little chunk of practice. Brock was playing really well. And there was another play that wasn't a touchdown or a big gain, but I really feel exemplifies that Brock Purdy's back. And there's not much that we need to worry about with Brock in regards to, because remember, if you've been with me as I've talked about Brock Purdy's evaluation process, we're evaluating the physical, but we're also evaluating the mental. We're evaluating how he processes, does he look like that Brock that we saw running around, making guys miss, throwing the ball to the back corner to Brandon Ayuk? Like, is that the Brock we're getting? That's what we're trying to figure out. And I feel pretty confident about it. I feel pretty confident about what we got. So Brock just has this phenomenal period. 2 drop touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and 3 touchdowns in a row. For the stat crowd, there's not a whole lot that you can really discredit in regards to Brock Purdy's performance today. He did have an interception, but I will talk about that interception coming up here in a little bit. Trey Lance's turn. So Trey Lance, we're in move the ball red zone period. So they probably start at about the 30 and they're moving in for a touchdown, and move the ball is pretty self-explanatory. It's the closest thing to a game simulation. They're using down and distance. They're using first, second, third down. It's the closest thing to a game simulation. I think people don't understand that the early parts of team periods are working out scheme specific concepts. So, like for example, Brock Purdy's first 4 reps of practice was a pitch, play action, pitch, because that's the concept they're working. But when you get into move the ball, it's more, let's get into our flow. Let's call the plays. Let's move this ball downfield like it's a game. So Trey's moving the ball downfield. He has one play where he bounces out of the pocket. He's got his eyes downfield, and what I was hoping for was Trey to be able to. He's bounced out to his left to be able to find someone and just rip it in for a touchdown. He didn't find anyone, and he ran out of bounds. He actually took a loss on the play, and then the next play up, he was trying to target. I didn't see exactly who he was targeting. It was kind of in the same spot where Danny Gray had the drop on Brock Purdy's touchdown. And let's see. This is where it's third down. So if they don't complete this third down, their move the ball drive is over. They reset. Trey fires to the front corner left pylon, and it is dropped by, I think, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. Hit him basically right in the hands, and just falls to the ground. So, I mean, luckily it wasn't an interception, but it also wasn't a great throw, and the ball was put in harm's way. So it was a near interception, wasn't an interception. But again, like, the biggest thing for me for Trey is that he's showed improvements. He's shown the mechanical fixes. He's shown the development in his game. I want to see him beat Sam Darnold now. Like, that's what I want to see. Like, I don't think he's beaten Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold has beaten Trey. I don't think either one of those guys have beaten each other. It's honestly one of the more uninspiring quarterback competitions, I feel like, because they were both cooking at the same time, and then they're both kind of mediocre at the same time. It's just like, man, who's going to take this job? Like, we know the quarterback 2 is up for grabs. Who's going to take it? I haven't seen anyone take it. Honestly, if it comes down to quarterback 2 and Kyle Shanahan making a decision based on reps in training camp, which I don't think it even can. I think you got to put these guys through preseason, and you got to see how they manage preseason. I think joint practices and I think preseason are really going to be the deciding factors, because there's nothing to decide from a competition standpoint, because they're all even. They're all even. I want to see someone take it. No one's taking it. I appreciate the improvements that Trey has put together, but he's not taking it. We talked about that all offseason. Trey's got to take this job. That's not going to be handed to him. He's got to go out there and get it, take it. And the last 2 practices have been a little bit underwhelming from that perspective. Justin says, love the breakdowns. Gotta know how Jordan Mason has looked compared to last camp and last season. We'll see. I think there's a little bit different of an evaluation for Jordan Mason because we know what to expect. You know what I mean? Like, last year we didn't know. Like, last year Justin told me, he's like, hey, Jordan Mason, keep an eye on him. When you go to training camp, keep an eye on Jordan Mason. I'm like, I got you. Let's go. I'm going to go training camp. I'm going to go watch Jordan Mason. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really go do deep dive into his tape. So I went into training camp like, who's Jordan Mason? Justin says he's good. Let's find out. And we got into training camp, and I was like, Justin was absolutely right. Jordan Mason is phenomenal. I think it's a lot of the same. Like, we know exactly what Jordan Mason is. He's a hard downhill runner, one cut and go, good vision. He can do it out of the backfield. He's a tough physical guy who has a little bit of finesse to him. He's a guy. I mean, we talked about this as well. I mean, I talked about how Cleveland Farrell was one of my underrated players heading into this camp, and I picked Jordan Mason as my other underrated player. I picked 4. Jordan Mason was one of the 4 as well. And I said his biggest path to be able to take RB2 is if if Elijah Mitchell gets hurt. Elijah Mitchell is hurt. Not only is Elijah Mitchell hurt, we had 4 running backs try out for the San Francisco 49ers today. 4 guys. One of them being Duke Johnson, Jason Aponte's guy. We had 4 running backs try out for the 49ers today after practice. I got video of it. I posted it to YouTube and other places. So Jordan Mason can absolutely be the RB2 at this point. He could. He really could. I already talked about how Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, and TDP, it's felt like, if we're talking about second string, 2A, 2B, and 2C, all it takes is a little injury and you not practicing, and Jordan Mason taking hold of that spot. there's a world that exists that Jordan Mason is your RB2 this year, and TDP is your RB3. And I really think the emergence of TDP could be a detriment to Elijah Mitchell, because the we know Elijah Mitchell is a quality back, and Elijah Mitchell also has some quality tape that is out there, that he's done it in real games, but we know what it is. He just can't stay available right now. And that opens up the questions for this front office. Well, can we take a 6th-round draft pick that we're going to have to pay here pretty soon in Elijah Mitchell, and can we flip him for defensive end, for a 3rd-round pick? I think you could get a 3rd-round pick for Elijah Mitchell. So does that intrigue the 49ers? Kalen Laborn looks like a guy. Do they feel comfortable getting a pick in return, keeping CMC, TDP, JP, and Laborn? Maybe. It opens up that door. I don't say that that's necessarily going to happen, but that's the biggest thing that we talked about heading into this offseason regarding Elijah Mitchell. Health. He needs to stay healthy. He needs to keep getting those reps, because he's got hungry dogs behind him that are trying to take some of his plate. And because he's not on the field, they are taking his plate. And so that then opens up the question, or at least the thought process: can we get something of value if we truly believe in Jordan Mason, in TDP, and Laborn looks like a guy? So it'll be again, cut day is going to be wild. But Jordan Mason looks great. Jordan Mason continues to get a big bulk of carries throughout training camp. He looks really good. So thank you for the super chat, Justin. I appreciate that. But he looks great. All right, let's get back into kind of so if you're just joining, I'm doing kind of play-by-play of team periods right now. And so play-by-play of team period. Brock was, outside of the interception, Brock was pretty good today. Outside the interception, I liked what Brock did today. Brock Purdy threw an absolute strike up the left sideline to Deebo Samuel, in stride, upfield, outside shoulder. This is one of the better, deep balls that Brock Purdy has thrown. He didn't moonball this thing. He didn't put air under it. He threw this thing on. It wasn't on a rope, but I mean, when you look at some of his other deep balls, it's got some air under it. I think he was really trying to allow his guys to run under it or figure out that timing. This ball, I mean, it had to be like 30 air yards, 35 air yards. So it was a decently deep pass, and it was basically a go for Deebo Samuel down the left sideline. He had a step, and it was a catchable ball. It was a catchable ball. Deebo Samuel right up here, outside shoulder, upfield. Like it was a catchable ball. Quality ball. And again, it didn't have that moon arc. It was more of he fit it. Like he fit that ball on the upfield shoulder. So Purdy's gotten better every single day. That's the one tangible thing that you can take away from Brock Purdy. Every single practice, he's gotten better. I feel like I've came on these lives and said, "Oh, that was Brock's best practice." Well, next day, well, that was Brock's best practice. Next day, well, that was Brock has improved every single day. Every single day. The fact that he looks fully healed from this surgery is just kind of wild to me when you really kind of take a step back. Um, so Brock has been really good over the middle throughout training camp. I would say that's arguably one of his most accurate passes is being pinpoint accurate when it comes to fitting balls over the middle in between linebackers throughout training camp. I mean, you've seen the highlights. Some of his best throws have been in the intermediate part of the field, fitting it in between linebackers and DBs. He's done a really good job at that. Today, he had a high one on Kittle. So it went high. Kittle had a rise DB. It wasn't the best ball placement. He needed to drop the ball placement. But I called it rare because Brock has been pretty solid over the middle in the intermediate parts of the field, just darting it. And this one was a high ball, and Kittle wasn't able to bring it in, and I don't think it's on Kittle. I would say the critique would be Brock needs to get that ball down and put it in a more catchable spot. I didn't see what was in front of Brock, so I don't know if he was trying to fit it over someone or if there was like a underneath linebacker or a defensive line. I didn't see any of that. All I saw was it was high, and Kittle tried to rise up for it, and just it was too high. It was too high. One of my favorite reps of today, Cleveland Farrell. Cleveland had a phenomenal practice today. Cleveland Farrell versus Trent Williams. I mean, I don't know if this was a mid zone. I don't know if it was an outside zone. I don't know what the heck they were running, but it was basically off Trent Williams' hip. And the edge defender was Cleveland Farrell, however you pronounce his name. And so what it turned into was Trent Williams versus Cleveland. I don't know if Trent was trying to either wall him out or he was trying to reach him. I don't know what the responsibility is, so I'm not going to guess. All I know is they were one-on-one, and basically Cleveland run fit. So if you know anything about defensive line run fits, they get hands, they extend, and get eyes in the backfield. So he run fit Trent, and then CMC, like he basically run fit outside, right? So as the edge defender, he wants to have CMC go back towards help. So run fit outside, eyes to the outside, maintain the outside leverage, forcing CMC back inside. So CMC had to cut to the other side of Trent, and Cleveland just went whoop, and Trent went that way, and Cleveland went whoop, and took care of CMC. And I was like, yeah, all right, Cleveland. All right, Cleveland. I can vibe with it. I can vibe with it for sure. So Cleveland had a really good practice today. Really good practice today. I'm seeing that Nick Bosa is number 4 on the top 100. Is that too high or is that too low for the Bear? Nick Bosa, number 4 on the 49ers top 100. Seems pretty valid to me. I don't know. I didn't see the list. I just saw that he was number 4. 4 seems pretty accurate. Seems pretty solid, pretty good. No? Yes? Nick Bosa waiting for our guy to get paid. Pay Nick Bosa. All right, I need to make a little post really quick. 49ers Nick Bosa is the fourth ranked player on the hashtag NFL top 100. Bosa. Pay that man. Pay him. Pay him his money. Bring it in a Brinks truck. Back up the truck. Bring it in gold bars and pay him his quiche. Are you guys concerned at all about this? It's a holdout. We can call it a holdout. It's definitely a holdout now. Are we concerned at all about the holdout? This thing's dragging on way longer than I anticipated. Way longer than I anticipated. It's like, man, we know the 49ers are going to make him the highest paid player in the world from the defensive side. Like, what are we waiting for? Just do it. Just do it. Just come on. I get it. You guys play hardball, and you guys have a very specific way of going about getting your stuff done. But just do it. Like, why not? Why the heck not? Pay him. Pay that man his money. Pay him his money. All right. It'll happen. I'm not too worried about it. It'll happen. Let's see. So Cleveland, we had a Diamador Lenore sack on Brock on a cornerback blitz. So one of the things with Steve Wilks is that we are seeing more defensive back blitzes. We've seen safeties coming off the edge. We're seeing cornerbacks come off the edge. We are going to get more defensive backs blitzing this year than I think we've seen in quite some time. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So now we got to the Brock Purdy interception. I didn't really get a great look on who tipped it. I saw someone report that it was Dre Greenlaw, but again, it was one of those passes over the middle, and the ball got deflected and it got popped straight up in the air. And Tashawn Gibson, it was tip drill, came down with it. So I honestly didn't get a phenomenal look at it. But it was an interception, and obviously one of the linebackers got their hands on it and popped that ball straight in the air and fell right into Tashawn Gibson's hand. So that throw, the interception and the high ball to Kittle, those were really the ones that, you probably want to have back. But outside of that, pretty solid day for Brock Purdy. The one play that like really kind of made me feel like he's really legitimately comfortable out there is he had this play action rollout to the right. So he's out in space and he kind of pulls up, doesn't like what he sees, and then he bounces back to his left, and he's doing his Brock Purdy, like it reminded me of that Seattle play, the one where how he went to his left and then ran back to his right and then pump faked the guy and then threw the dart to Brandon Ayuk. That's what it felt like. Like when we're talking about the way he was moving, that's what he felt like. But it was a rollout to the right, then he scrambled back to the left, and then he goes across field, across body on a comeback from someone. He sees someone on the opposite side of the field running back, and he just delivers a dart uh on this makeshift play where Brock Purdy's just running around, and it felt like one of those plays that we came to know and love from Brock Purdy last year, where he's running around and he just makes something happen. So today was a good practice for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is your unquestioned quarterback one. There really wasn't a doubt. I thought there could have been a chance that if one of these other guys maybe played well enough that they would consider it. Maybe if there's a shot that Brock didn't bounce back. Yes, it was a catch. It was a catch. Um, I thought that maybe if Brock didn't, come back as fast as we thought he would, there would be a shot for one of these guys to take QB1. No, this is Brock's job. Brock is quarterback one. His performance today, his performance, previous practice and move the ball drill just solidifies to me that right now Brock Purdy is the best quarterback on the roster right now. Um, Brock Purdy is never going to be the guy who has the biggest and best arm. That's just never going to be his thing. But he wins in so many other different ways, and he's settling in. And it feels like Brock is back to being comfortable and back to just playing ball. And, you know, being able to read the defense and pick them apart. And I just feel like Brock Purdy right now is by far the best quarterback, and that's with limited practice. He again had off days. He had his limited practice, limited time. So Brock, to me, is the guy. So he did a really good job to close out open training camp practice, solidified QB1, quarterback 2. I don't think we know. I don't think we know yet. I think they got to do it in preseason. I don't think either guy pulled away. I feel like they're pretty even, and I feel like we'll figure out what's going down with QB2 throughout preseason. So let me know. What do you got? If you have any other questions, obviously I kind of went through play by play of practice today, but if you guys have any other questions, of other specific players or anything like that, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm going to do more of like a recap video tomorrow. So be able to kind of go through all my notes, identify guys, talk about biggest risers, biggest fallers, and we'll start to shape that kind of roster construction. That it's going to be a difficult one to kind of uh, to really uh, lock in. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm gonna look at some of the questions that you guys are dropping in the chat. And again, if you've asked questions, feel free to re-ask them. Um, if you asked questions a little bit earlier, feel free to re-ask them. Let's see. How are the quarterbacks doing? I think the cornerbacks have definitely taken a step forward, um, especially with Charvarius Ward playing more. I think they've done better. I think it's been a battle. I definitely think it's been a battle. I really like what Samuel Womack has done. Deshaun Jameson is a guy that could absolutely push for a roster. Jake Moody, franchise kicker, baby. We got our franchise kicker. Um, they also didn't make it fair. Quarterback one competition, giving him all the reps with the first team. That's because it wasn't a quarterback competition. It clearly wasn't a quarterback competition. I thought there might be a chance it was. There wasn't. It wasn't at all. They gave him all the reps, and rightfully so. He's quarterback one. That's why he's the unquestioned starter. Because it was never a competition, and because it was never a competition, you give quarterback one you give him as many reps as you can. That's just how it works. If the team feels that confident that Brock Purdy is the guy, you don't split reps. You don't. You give him every rep with the first team to become comfortable, to settle in and to do those things. And so that's the thing. It was never a competition for quarterback one, and I think they did the right thing. That's how it should have been. If that's how they felt that he's their QB1, that's how you divvy the reps. You only split the reps if there's actually a quarterback competition because you want these guys to get reps. That's the whole thing. Danny Gray today, other than the drop. Danny Gray today, I don't think there's really anything that stood out to me that Danny did. It's definitely a quiet practice today for Gray. That's why that I was like, man, I wish he caught that touchdown because it was kind of quiet practice for Danny. He's had better practices, at least Pop more and team. Um, I don't know. I'm thinking about it more. I don't know. I don't see. I think of Danny Gray with the third round draft investment into him being a second year player. I feel like they would have a hard time cutting him because I don't think he's been a cuttable player, but he definitely has some heavy competition. That's the hard part. It's like he's not cuttable, but he's got some tough competition. Like Conley's been good, Willie Snead's been good, Tay Martin's been good. Ronnie Bell's been good. He's got some tough competition. Is Mitchell running back two? I think it's going to be really interesting to see how these reps divvy out when the regular season starts, because I do think that Mitchell's losing out opportunities to maintain RB2. I think Mitchell being hurt is opening up the door for guys like Jordan Mason to take hold of that. Not that Mitchell isn't bad, but they're going to get used to They're going to get used to Mason's running style more. They're going to be able to feel like they can rely on Mason more, and that might translate into more looks for Mason, which takes away looks for Mitchell. So, yes, by default, Mitchell is still RB2, but I think it's something that we got to watch. I don't think it's like set in stone that he's RB2. I think it's up for debate because I think Jordan Mason has been playing that well. And I think Jordan Mason's been playing at that high of a level that Elijah Mitchell being hurt was the last thing that Elijah Mitchell needed to be able to maintain RB2. So we'll see. How has Jair Brown looked? He's looked good. I will say, like, I remember I've told you the story about watching how Talanoa Hufanga popped as a rookie for me. He hasn't popped to that level, but I would say right now Jair Brown has looked best around the line of scrimmage, when it's either uh, rushing off the edge or tackling, or like he seems like he's going to be really physical. I think in coverage, there, at least in like one-on-ones, he's definitely struggled with Latu a little bit. So I'm excited to see how Jair Brown looks in games and how he's used in games, because I would imagine he's going to be used more around the line of scrimmage. So from that standpoint, I think he'll do all right. But I am interested to see what he looks like in coverage. So that is going to be very, very interesting to see. I think Jair Brown is going to be good, but I still think he still needs some more reps, some more time. He'll be good though. I'm not worried about him at all. It's going to be the same boring offense with Brock. Honestly, he'll be lucky to get 25 yards a game. Did you watch the games last year? Didn't the 49ers average 30 points a game with Brock Purdy under center? Didn't the offense look the best that it's ever looked under Kyle Shanahan with any one of these quarterbacks in San Francisco? I don't know. Maybe the tape was lying to me. I don't know. But the Brock that I'm seeing, Brock looks pretty dynamic right now. He looks good. He had a rushing touchdown today. Like, you talk about his ability to bounce out of the pocket. He had a rushing touchdown today. I don't know if there's been any other quarterback throughout 10 days of training camp that has had a rushing touchdown. And it wasn't a designed run. It was a bailout to the pylon after he scored 3 touchdowns in a row and had Danny Gray drop a touchdown. So, I don't know. Oh, that's right. Because CMC, Brock doesn't get any credit for that. That's right. I forgot how that works. Let's see. What other questions do we got? Do I think Brock Purdy will start for 1 or 2 drives against the Raiders? It sounds like no. Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media after practice today, said he doubts that Brock Purdy will play against the Raiders in preseason. He will play. He will play in joint practices, but doesn't sound like he'll play in the preseason, which is fine with me. Joint practices are more important than the preseason. Let's see. Is there a way TDP surpasses Mason by week 1? I mean, TDP has had a phenomenal camp, but I still think Mason is the guy right now. The primary backup to Elijah Mitchell. But I've been very impressed with TDP, man. I've been really impressed with TDP. I'm not understanding how people are so negative about a guy who came in and did what Brock did last year. I mean, I understand it. You know, people really get invested into individual players. And like, I totally understand why people want Trey Lance to be successful. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, how could you be a 49er fan and want Trey Lance to be successful? Like, I totally understand why people want Trey Lance to be successful. But the problem with certain people who want Trey Lance to be successful is that they want Trey Lance to be so successful that they will literally discredit anything that Brock Purdy does, and it's the weirdest thing to me. It's the weirdest thing to me that they want Trey Lance to be good so bad that they will discredit Brock Purdy at every twist and turn that they can take, and it's weird behavior. Again, I get it if you want Trey to be successful. That's who doesn't want Trey to be successful? The San Francisco 49ers spent King's ransom to get Trey. Of course we want Trey to be successful. But why does that have to be at the detriment of another player on your team who's done really well, clearly won the locker room, and has the trust of your head coach? So I get it. Like, I get that, hey, Trey, you want Trey to be successful and you want him to go out there and you want him to be your starter. I understand. But the simple fact of the matter right now is Brock Purdy is playing better than Trey Lance in practice. So we already seen what Brock can do in games, and he's already quickly bounced back, and he's playing better than Trey Lance in practice now. He's playing better than Sam Darnold. He's playing better than Brandon Allen. He looks like the starting quarterback. He looks like a guy who has full command of the offense. And that's what you're looking for. Like, is it great to have a huge arm? Absolutely, but that is not what it takes to play a quarterback position. Or else Jamarcus Russell would be a Hall of Famer. That's why I don't buy that argument. Like, do you want a elite arm? Do you want a Josh Allen? Of course. Do you want a Patrick Mahomes? Of course. That's not the only way you have to win. You can win other ways. And guess what? The 49ers, they pick and choose their deep shots. They don't rely on deep shots. Their whole offense isn't predicated on spreading it out and going deep downfield. They run it to death. They run you to death, play action, screen, slant, screen, 40-yard pass downfield. Like, yes, does having a cannon of an arm help? Of course. But right now, the player that has the most command of this offense from the quarterback position is Brock Purdy, and it can't be debated. No number of completion percentage from practice is going to push an argument that Brock Purdy hasn't been that. So I get it. You want Trey to do well. I want Trey to do well as well. But right now, Brock is proving to be the guy. And that's how the cookie crumbles right now. So I feel through 10 days, I feel pretty confident about the way Brock Purdy has practiced. I still feel good about the way Trey has practiced. Sam has shown it in spots. So again, we'll see. We'll see how it ultimately goes with the backup quarterback competition, because I don't think that's settled yet. But the starter is settled. The starter is Brock, and it's not even up for debate at this point. Alfredo Gutierrez, I haven't heard anything about him. He really doesn't play all that much. He really doesn't play that much. When he does get some opportunities, it's a bit of a struggle for him. I think he's a good story, and I think he'll stick around on the practice squad. He's a great ambassador. So I think he has a spot on the practice squad. But I just haven't seen anything from Alfredo to be like, that's a guy who can also make it in the NFL. But like I said, he's a great guy. He's a great ambassador. He doesn't take up a roster spot or a practice squad spot. So I think he'll be on this team as long as they can do that. But yeah, I don't know if we'll see him on the field or not. But he's a great teammate, great guy to have around. And like I said, he's a great ambassador as well. Which rookie stood out to you the most? Ooh, that's kind of getting into tomorrow's conversation. So what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Tuesday. We'll still have some practices. So tomorrow I'm going to probably do kind of more of a training camp recap, biggest risers, rookies who stood out, guys who have maybe taken steps backwards, guys that I want to see more from, things like that. So I'm going to do that tomorrow, kind of more individual to each individual player. But we're kind of getting up against it. Shout out to everyone who's tapped in. Thank you guys as always. This was year 3 in the books of independently covering the San Francisco 49ers training camp practices. It was by far the wildest training camp coverage experience that I have ever had. But it was a blast nonetheless. Always good to be back around football, talking about football and watching the San Francisco 49ers get after it. Best thing that I could tell you right now is that this team's for real, and this team has an opportunity to win a lot of football games this year. So I'm really happy about what I saw throughout training camp. And next we got joint practices. I believe there's a practice tomorrow, but it's closed to the public. And then they will get ready to travel to Vegas for joint practices. And then we'll have Jimmy Garoppolo versus the 49ers defense. Oh, it's going to be glorious. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. But again, shout out to all you guys for tapping in. If you guys have been tracking with me and following my coverage of training camp, I truly appreciate it. I appreciate you guys, just commenting, just liking videos, just watching along. I do appreciate it. Of course, anyone who sends a super chat and all that type of stuff, it means a lot, helps the channel, helps me a lot. So I appreciate you, appreciate all you guys. And we're getting ready. The preseason is about to begin. I haven't seen anything that has shown that these practices are going to be made open by the public. So if they were, I'd be there, but I haven't seen it yet. So I don't think they are. So I don't think I'm going. But if they were open, I would be going because the content would be phenomenal. But I'm going to have to we'll kind of break it down from all the different spots that we get it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll do what we do as we get ready for joint practices with the Raiders. Oh, it's going to be a good time. Shout out to all you guys. Smash that like button on your way out. Grab some cookies. Y'all the best. I'm out of here. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.